Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. If you're paying attention, you know that you only make money when you work. It might be great money, but it's dependent on you. The information on this podcast will help you solve that. We interview experts and provide analysis into financial freedom through commercial real estate. Why? To help physicians like you thrive. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. This is your host, Dr. Michael McManus, and we are here today with Ray Hightower. Ray is a commercial real estate investor and tech company founder operating in the state of Arizona. He started and ran his tech company for over 2 decades before selling the company and launching Bridgetown Partners, who does business as ROI Clear. Bridgetown and ROI Clear buy commercial real estate in Arizona, Tennessee, and Texas, with a special focus on 50 to 150 unit multifamily properties. The company also produces the ROI Clear podcast, the video podcast for business leaders. We'll have the link to that and more about it in the show notes. Ray, welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you so much for having me here.
I love your story because, like a lot of people in commercial real estate, it wasn't their first profession. So tell me a little bit more about your tech company and your start before you got to real estate.
Yeah, sure. My background, I have a computer science degree, and I've been a software developer, and I've also been in technical sales. Back when I was about 25 years old, I was in corporate America. I decided to leave corporate America because I got wind of these people who were making a bunch of money in real estate. So I left corporate America at 25 because at the age of 25, I knew everything. So of course I was going to be massively successful immediately, right? Well, it didn't work out. I lost a lot of money. I did close some deals. I closed some industrial property, vacant land, restaurants, some apartment properties, retail, and one single family house. So I closed some deals, but I did not do enough to sustain myself. So I decided to get back into technology. I launched my tech company then. So we're at 1994 at this point, and I launched my technology company. As you read earlier, I spent 21 plus years running that. That was a blast. It was a lot of fun. You know, we generated revenue and we had a lot of fun together. And I ran that until it was time to sell. I sold that and started looking around at some other things. And of course, multifamily real estate made sense. Started learning about syndications. That's it in a nutshell, and I can drill down in any of those areas that you would like to drill down into.
You know what I like about how you tell your story is there's so many people when they tell the story, and a lot of this is because our brain likes to fuse a story into a nice, clean, happy story. But you didn't tell it that way. You know, you told the story about because that and I think what's great is it's accurate because for people listening, that's the fear. What happens if I go do something different and it doesn't work out? What if I fail? Yeah. And so to hear stories that it wasn't like this smooth path, I think helps people go, okay, this might not be smooth, but it can still work out. So thank you for telling your story that way. And you know, a lot of docs now are like corporate America employees. The world has changed for docs. Most are employed.
Yes.
And so it's not a whole lot different than what you were doing. Uh, what were some of the hard things about, you know, you said at 25 you knew everything. Was it a challenge to leave, or did you leave with the 25-year-old brain that I'm going to go conquer the world?
I left with that 25-year-old brain. Everybody told me I was crazy. There were a few people who said, "Oh, great, you're gonna do awesome and all this stuff," but a few people thought I was nuts, and that's fine. But it was a good experience. You know, my brother, I have a younger brother. He's a year younger than me, and he is extremely wise, very smart businessman, and very smart engineer. And we've talked about this experience that I had, and he likes to say about that time in my life, he says, that's the kind of experience you wouldn't trade for $1 million but you wouldn't repeat it again for 2.
Oh,
Because that's where it is. But I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I did all that before I was 30, because I learned a lot about legal agreements and negotiation and sales and getting things done. And there are lessons I learned during that period that are still useful to me today. So I don't regret it. And because of that, I was much more effective when I was running the technology company. I understood how to put contracts together, how to negotiate for what, the team needed in order to deliver results and all of that. So, all of these things happen in a way. I think it was Steve Jobs who said, we can't connect the dots in we can't connect the dots as they're being connected, but if we look back, then we can connect the dots. We can see how things are coming together.
so looking back, if you were to give advice to somebody who's looking at either jumping ship, like I can't take it as a doctor anymore, or an engineer, or whatever, and whether it's going to be a full jump, a part jump, how would you advise somebody if they came to you now and said, Ray, I can't do this anymore. I like what you did, to make it as smooth as possible for them.
Yeah. You know what? One thing that they can do is something that was not available to me back then. It was 89 when I left corporate America. There was no YouTube. There was an internet, but it was not available to the public. It was only available to universities and people with the Department of Defense. So what I would do today is I would encourage them to read as much as they can about the area that they want to go into, watch every YouTube video they can, listen to every podcast, gather as much information as they can from all of the free resources that are out there. And you and I both know there are tons of free sources of information out there. I have friends all over the world. One of my friends in Kenya refers to YouTube University, because he and some of his friends said there are a lot of things that they were able to pick up over YouTube. And I have friends in Kenya and in South Africa who have started successful companies and continue to grow their companies based on things they've been able to learn on YouTube. And that's true all over the world. There are people in the United States who are doing that too. So I would encourage them to take advantage of the resources that are available to them now that were not available to me. Get as much of the free information that you can first, and then I would encourage them to network. I would say get involved in any of the real estate investment networking groups that are out there and meet people and interact with people, and hopefully get involved in a deal or two before you leave that safe, comfortable corporate job. Because once you're gone, it is a challenge to get the money that you need to pay your basic living expenses. That is a challenge. So I would encourage them to look at that. Get the free education that you can from YouTube and podcasts and all of that, and from books, and then network as much as they can. And there's networking. You know this. There's networking that we can do over Zoom. There's people that you and I have both met over Zoom that we never would have met in person.
Yeah,
So
it's
there it is.
the
Yeah.
world just got really small.
Yes,
And
absolutely. Absolutely.
and that's great. So and you were saying, so to get into some deals, do you think it's more beneficial in the beginning if you're finding some people to partner with, that you're more directly in the deal versus going the syndication route out of the gate?
That's an individual choice. I can talk about some things that they might consider, going one way or the other. I mean, you and I are both syndicators, so of course we want people to invest in our deals as limited partners, on a syndication basis. That's fine, but I think there's also some benefit in maybe doing some joint ventures if they feel like putting together a joint venture. But they need to know up front the level of commitment and energy and mental anguish that they have to deal with if they do that, right? So it's all about trade-offs. Nothing is for free. Yeah, there's some people say, oh, I only want to be a GP. I only want to be a JV. That's fine. Understand that you are committing a certain level of time and energy. Whereas if you are investing as an LP, you are investing money, but your time commitment and your energy commitment is drastically reduced. So it's kind of a spectrum. And I think the important thing is for the person who's making that decision is to pick a point on that spectrum and pick that point on purpose. Don't get involved in a JV deal or as a GP only to find out you're not going to have time to get involved in the deal the way your partners need you to, because then you're a shoddy partner. So, in some cases, it makes sense to go in as an LP. I have a friend right now who's, actually, I have several friends in different parts of the country who are walking away from deals because they have a partner or partners who are not as committed to the deal as they thought they would be. And so it's better to walk away early rather than once you've gotten to the closing table and that's it.
And I guess that's where if you start as an LP, you still get some access to deals, and depending on
Yes.
who you're, I have a friend that in one of his deals, he had an investor come along and say, I want to learn more about this, so I'll invest
Yes.
if I can sit in on a lot of your management calls and just see the way that whole process goes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we got nothing to hide here. And so that was his way of kind of leveraging his way into a seat at the table with a little bigger view, but without the responsibility of being on the GP or being a partner.
Sure, sure. That's an excellent way to do it. My first deal when I first moved to Arizona, I went in as an LP, and I went in with GPs that I trusted and respected and people that I knew I wanted to learn from. So yeah, that's an excellent way to start.
So in this, when you left so you left corporate America, and then you found that it was a little bit tougher going in real estate, but you did a bunch of different asset classes there early on.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that by intention to try a bunch of different things, or you just, that's where you found deals that they worked?
That's where I found deals that had worked. And those were all smaller deals. I was at I was at three different firms over the period of time that I was in that business in Chicago, and commercial real estate firms, small commercial real estate firms. You've got a firm, you've got one person who runs it, and they may do a little bit of every asset class there because they are known as the commercial firm, in that area, right? And so that's how I was able to get my hands into some apartment stuff, some apartments and some vacant land and some industrial property, because these are smaller deals, $200,000-$300,000 deals, and back in this is late '80s, early '90s, so you can apply whatever factor you would apply to that to figure out what those would probably be $1 million deals today, right? So they were smaller deals, and I wasn't intentional about, I'm only going to do industrial, I'm only going to do retail. I was intentional about, I'm going to make sure that I have money to eat and keep a roof over my head. That is, it's like the thing that Napoleon used to say to his troops, we don't eat until we take the next town. So it was very much driven by that. But, I was 25, I was in my mid 20s. So, yeah, that's the way we rolled.
That's great. So, we talk a lot on this show because kind of the focus has been, because there's a lot of shows about multifamily, talking a lot about retail and industrial and entitlement and office and
Yes.
some of these other asset classes. So you've had exposure to all, and this is kind of a chance for the alternative view that Dr. McManus eats crow. So you had exposure to all, and you end up focusing on multifamily. What was it that appealed to you about multifamily as a stronger focus than the other asset classes?
Oh, that's a really good question. I decided intentionally as a syndicator to focus on multifamily because people always need a place to live. Fundamentally, people always need a place to live. Now, there's more competition perhaps in multifamily because there are a lot of people who have that philosophy. People always need a place to live. But, I'm kind of funny about competition. What many people view as competitors, or the firms that many people view as competitors, I also see as potential collaborators. I've collaborated with people that, one of my best partners and one of my deals right now, we were actually bidding against each other on a deal. And through networking, we're both very good networkers. Through networking, we discovered that we were on opposite sides of this deal because it's a small world and stuff just gets out there. And I could go into exactly what happened there, but it was really networking. And we discovered we were on opposite sides of the deal. And we decided, I had one other partner with me. We were going in on one side, and he was with another partner going in. And we decided, the three of us decided that we would be better off working together because we knew each other already. No like trust. We already had that. And we decided, you know what, let's try this. And we've been working together very well. Coming up on 2 years, we've been working together. We spent a good 18 months working on all of the rigmarole and stuff we had to go through to close our most recent deal. And now we're sifting some other deals. So it's, it's a team sport. And it works I chose multifamily intentionally because you always need a place to live. Even if there's more competition, your competitors can end up be your collaborators, and then everybody wins from that. I did not, do you want me to go through the other asset classes that I considered and why I didn't look at them? Does that
Sure.
make
No,
sense?
it's great
Yeah.
because these are questions that if somebody's out there thinking about it, and they may not even have any basis of they've maybe listened to me ramble on, but give another viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, let's start with office. There was I don't know if I can say the word because I don't want you to get demonetized, but there was a situation that happened. It was a global situation that kicked off, about February or March of 2020, and it lasted for a while. And for that reason, there were a lot of people who did not go back to offices. So office took a nosedive because people were not renewing their office leases, right? So I wasn't really interested in office. And there's some people say, why don't you buy office and then refurbish it as apartments? Well, that's a very good question because a lot of times the newer office buildings, you have all the elevators in the center of the floor, all the windows around the edge of the floor. That doesn't necessarily work well for apartments because what's also in the center of the floor is all the piping, for the restrooms and everything like that. And it would take a lot of money to install the necessary piping for kitchens and bathrooms and, jacuzzis and whatever people want in their apartments, right? So that's why I didn't look at office. Retail, I considered it. However, here's the challenge with retail. Amazon. One word, Amazon. And if you are running a retail center, you need to make sure that your tenants are people who are not selling a product that can be replaced by Amazon. So you better be offering a service. Like I have a friend who owns multiple liquor stores, they're liquor and some other, accoutrements, sundries and all that stuff. But that won't be replaced by Amazon because he's selling an experience beyond just the product that they're selling. And then industrial is another one that I think is very strong because people are always going to need goods. And if I decide to go into another asset class after multifamily, the next one would probably be industrial, but I'm having a really good time in multifamily right now. So that's what I'm looking at. Mobile home parks, that's a subset of multifamily. I consider it to be, it's a very specialized niche, a very specialized subset of multifamily, but I would look at that. And assisted living, I'm a GP investor in 146 doors of assisted living here in Arizona also. So that there's some relationship between that and multifamily. So, and
So
I
the
can drill
assisted
down on all those too. Yeah.
I was gonna say the assisted living you see more as just kind of a specialized multifamily.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. With some highly skilled professionals on staff. Yes.
What do you see as the hardest parts about multifamily or maybe the arguments against it?
You know what? Arguments against multifamily. That is a regional, I think there are some regional arguments that could be made against multifamily. For example, if you're going into a market where there's been a ton of multifamily built and the market is saturated. So I would look at it on a regional basis. And what do they say? All real estate is really local. So any arguments that I would make against multifamily would have to do more with something happening in a specific region or specific part of the country or part of a state or something like that. And you know, one argument that you could make, oh, I don't want to deal with tenants and toilets and termites or whatever. Well, we hire professional managers, as you do, certainly, right? We hire professional managers. They deal with that. And what we try to do is hire and engage with and bring on board people who are extremely gifted and extremely passionate in areas that we don't want to focus on. On my team, we focus on acquisitions, capital raising, and asset management. And then we hire property managers to do the day-to-day property management.
I've had docs ask me because they hear these terms and they feel kind of interconnecting. So we're just going to do a basic terminology for a second. The difference between asset management and property management.
Okay. Property management, those are the people who manage the property day to day. They're responsible for showing the units to prospective tenants. They're responsible to responding to requests for maintenance. They collect the rent every month. They put together the general ledger, like they track all the income and expenses on the property, all of those things. So anything that has to do with the day-to-day operation of the property manager is responsible for. The asset manager hires the property manager. The asset manager decides on what the business plan is going to be for the property, and the asset manager is responsible for executing that business plan. For example, our business plan is typically what would be called a value add business plan, meaning we buy this multifamily investment property, we fix it up, and we give people a great place to live. Well, fix it up, 3 short words, right? But what that means is, yeah, isn't it? You're laughing because you've been down this path before.
I hadn't heard it put that way. 3 short words. You're like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
3 short words, but see, you've had experience there. You know exactly where I'm going with this. You know exactly what I'm saying, because fix it up. I'm thinking about property. One property that we have, we replaced the roofs on that property. We had budgeted like 50 grand to replace the roofs. This is a 28 unit property. The roofs on multiple buildings there. And it turns out that the roof cost us 60 grand, not 50 grand, because when the roofers went in, they ripped off the asphalt shingles and went down below the tar and down to the decking, the plywood decking, and found that some of the plywood decking had rotted out because the previous owner had waited too long to replace the roof or repair the roof. So we had some repairs involved in, with plywood decking. So that's something that you can't really predict. You find it, you realize that you have to do that once you get into the job.
And that's something just because you don't always know. We had a house we bought that was only 5 years old. And on the inspection, they found looked like a little roof rot just on one corner, thought it was due to ice. We got in to get it fixed, had to replace a good amount of decking, and it was only 5 years old. Now you would think at 5 years that wouldn't be an issue, and usually it isn't. But there it is. When you're looking at getting in under a roof, sometimes it's a bad roof.
Yes,
and that's
sometimes,
that's part of your business plan. But it is one of those big variables that can catch you off guard.
Right. That is so true. That's a brilliant example that you just shared that you don't necessarily know. So, as the asset managers are responsible for putting together the budget that the property managers use to execute, the business plan. So the asset manager is thinking about, wow, do we have enough money to replace the roof if in fact it's a bad roof? Do we have enough money to replace these HVAC units or heat pumps or whatever we're using for climate control in the units? Did we thoroughly scope out the pipes, the sewer pipes, to know whether they are intact or whether they're rotting away and we'll need to replace them? Those are all things the asset manager has to think about, and then they give direction to the property manager. And really, with a good property manager and an asset manager relationship, it's more of a partnership because there are things that property managers advise us on all day that we would not know without their advice. And so it's a partnership. We are, as asset managers, we're on the bridge of the ship, deciding where the ship is going to go. And the property manager is responsible for making sure the boat does not sink. It has plenty of fuel and, plenty of employees to execute whatever plan we have for that ship. So that's what we do.
In that construction world, So who runs the construction aspect? And I guess from the little bitty repairs to bigger repairs to complete remodels, is that something you're running from the asset manager side, or is that something the property manager, or does it depend?
You know what? It depends. And I'm glad you laid out a spectrum from the little bitty repairs to something that's big. It depends on what the expensive. Light bulb needs to be changed. As an asset manager, I better not hear about that. Just do it. You know what I mean? Just do it. It's a light bulb, right? But if we have to do something, say, like one of our properties, we've got solar panels on that property. It's so cool that we're able to save money because of the solar panels we have going on there. But if there is an issue with the solar panels, and that might not be the best example because photovoltaic cells really, they don't have any moving parts, and it's rare that something would happen with them. But let's say they did. That's something that they would need to speak with us as asset managers, because those are a big ticket item. Depending on, we've got, in that particular property, we have 94 units, 4 buildings, a whole lot of photovoltaic cells, many hundreds of square feet, thousands of square feet of photovoltaic cells, like $1.2 million solar installation there. So yeah, that's something where the asset manager would go get involved. Really, the asset manager is more involved when it concerns a higher dollar cost or a longer term impact.
So if you're coming in to do a value add and you're going to do a bunch of construction, like you're going to, over a period of whatever time, you're going to gut all the units and completely, upgrade them. So it was a 1980s, deal that hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
Is that, and again, you, them, or somewhere in between, or you're looking at different types of property managers that they manage the whole construction and you hire them and they're doing the whole thing, or you're looking for the GC and having those conversations and they're just doing the day to day. How does that play out? And is that something that just depends how you run your business?
Yeah, it depends on who you have on your team and how you run your business and the degree of, or the degree of, or the level of renovations that you're planning to do. For example, on our asset management team for like in the property that I just mentioned that we just closed on in May, we've got serious overkill on our asset management team. We've got 4 people who are all engineers or have led engineering teams, have project management experience in corporate America, have engineering leadership experience in the United States Marine Corps or the United States Air Force at the Pentagon, or have 25 plus years of experience in civil or structural engineering. So we've got serious overkill. So for engineering decisions, we've got people who can make those. And a lot of the more expensive things that you have to deal with on the property have to do with structural engineering decisions or plumbing decisions, that type of thing. And when we are choosing a property management company, we are choosing someone who can manage like light renovations and unit turns very rapidly and at a low cost. Rapidly because for every day that unit is vacant, we're not making money and our investors are not making money. And at a low cost, meaning if we're in an area like, a Class C area, we're not going to go in and put granite countertops in there because you do that, you're not going to be able to bump the rent sufficiently to cover the cost of installing the granite. So we'll do Formica, or there's some other processes that you can do there. So that's a case. I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because that's a case where you are, or we are having a good conversation between the asset managers and the property managers. The property manager, a good property manager, is out in their market every day looking at what residents want in their units, whether they want the granite or the Formica countertops, whether they want stainless steel appliances or not, whether they want a dog park or a swimming pool or jacuzzi or what have you. And they're gathering all of that data. And through that analysis, they're able to determine an optimum level of rent to charge, per unit. And all of that information comes together, and that helps us to decide how much money we want to spend to improve the units. You don't want to spend too little because then you'll chase your prospective residents away. You don't want to spend too much because they won't even care. Some people just want a place to go to sleep and then leave and go back to work, right? So there we go.
Yeah. So with the property managers, when you're looking at buying an asset, what are the key questions that you're asking property managers? If, I know that a lot of the time it's a huge plus if it's
Yes.
somebody who's already in that market, you've already worked with them, they've done a great job, and you're just dropping another property in their lap, and everybody's really excited because you work great together. But if you're
Yes.
moving in somewhere where you don't have a pre-existing relationship,
Mm-hmm.
what's your process for evaluating a property manager?
Yeah. Well, it comes down to espionage. I'm being a little bit, a little bit of a smart aleck in saying that. I'll give you an example. 3 days ago, my one of my partners and I were walking through a property in Arizona, 150 plus unit property, and we were invited to tour the property by a broker, so we got there. I got there a little bit early. I'm just in the habit of arriving at places early. I'm just a ridiculously early kind of person. So I got there a little bit early, went into the leasing office, sat down, and just started a conversation with the on-site property man. Two of the leasing agents, the on-site manager and one of the leasing agent were there. And we just started having a conversation. And you asked, what kinds of questions do I ask the property manager? First thing I want to know, what's your occupancy like right now? Oh, really? Your occupancy is 81%? What's the occupancy in this area like? Oh, it's like about 95, 96%. 96 minus 81 is 15. What do you think is causing that gap between that 96 in the market, the local market, and what you have at 81? So we had a conversation about that. And then I asked this manager, so if you had money to do something to this property. Let's say, sometimes I say, hey, if you had $100,000 to do anything you wanted to do with this property, how would you spend that $100,000? Or if it's a, larger property, I might say 200 or 500, whatever, whatever's appropriate. And then, so the on-site manager, told me about, some things that he would do to the property to improve it. And that helps me to understand where are the holes, where are the gaps. And this is all before the broker arrived, because like I said, I got there a little bit early and broker got there and we just carried on the conversation. But I want to know, as a person who's in acquisition mode, and my partners and I are like this at the same time, we want to know, what are the items on the property that we could potentially end up spending a lot of money on? Because we don't want to be surprised. A big expense, we can deal with it if we know about it in advance, because then we can include it in our underwriting and make rational decisions about it. But if it's a surprise, surprises are good for birthday parties, but not for asset management or for investment, So I'm asking them all kinds of questions, any question about anything that could impact the value of the property or the revenue of the property. I'm asking them, so who are the big employers nearby? Oh, really? How many of your residents here are employed by that one big employer? Now, on one hand, I'm happy to hear that they all have jobs. On the other hand, I'm thinking, if that big employer all of a sudden decides to move their facility to another part of the state or another part of the country, another part of the world, that impacts this investment. And as a fiduciary over my investors' money, I need to be thinking about things like that. So that's in general. You asked me one short question. I just kept whatever. So
No.
let me know. I hope that's useful. So yeah, that's what we're asking and thinking about.
That's great. I'm going to confess that those are my favorite people to interview because it's really easy. You just you poke them once and then off they go. That's makes it easy on my part. That's
Okay.
the hard ones are the
Wonderful.
people who give like 5-word answers, and then you're like, oh man, I need more questions.
Okay.
So,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Do you care about paying too much in taxes? And would you like to save more of your hard-earned dollars? Here's what we found. We found that most financial professionals have a one-size-fits-all solution. So the question is, would it make it easier for you to have someone tailor your tax solutions to your individual needs so you can keep more of your money and do what you want with it? That is exactly what we do at Excelstra.
As surgeons, we know the difference between routine surgery versus life-threatening interventions. And I want you to know that I've used Unicia and her team for my personal financial intervention, and I love the results. I would do you a disservice if I didn't recommend them to you.
We'd love to help you, so let's jump on a call and see how we can collaborate. Simply go to www.excelstra.com/McManus and book your free call today.
This has been an episode of Surgeon Syndicate. If you got value from this episode, you know other surgeons are hungry to become job optional, and you can help them by sharing this content today. Schedule a call and we can make a plan. Looking forward to having you with me on the next episode.